shifted from November 2022 to March 2023. And this was combined with the request to keep at least 1 year of distance between the launch of T2 and the go-live date of ECMS. So this request from the markets to keep 1 year distance between the two was there from the start. And the purpose was to mitigate the contention in terms of efforts to support first T2S and then T2, sorry, and then ECMS, and make sure that there is sufficient time and focus when we have to concentrate on ECMS. The window that the MIB considered was ranging between March and June 2024. And after a deep assessment within the Eurosystem, but also after consulting with the market players, the cursor was finally set on the 8th of April. Now, I just mentioned to you the launch of T2 it took place on the 20th of March, so soon, 3 months ago. That was a big thing, you know. It was more than 1,000 banks having to migrate to the new RTGS system and also to adopt ISO 20022. It was a big success. So the migration went very smoothly, and the first days in operations were also very, very good. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, while this focus session is actually devoted to ECMS, is because I know that many of you and your institutions were deeply involved into this. And this event is actually, for me, the first opportunity to thank you for your contribution to this success. We know how much sweat there was on our side to implement and coordinate this monster project. But at the same time, we should be mindful that none of this would have happened without your commitment and your effort. So again, a big thank to all of you for this. Now, the reason why we invited you today is not just to debrief you on the launch of T2. Today, we want to discuss ECMS. We are more or less 10 months away from the launch in April 2024. And 1 year ago, when we had our first focus session, we provided you with an overview on the general features of ECMS. And we also gave you an update on where we were with the development and also with the Eurosystem acceptance testing of the platform. The point is that now a lot has happened in between, and we are about to start the full community testing phase. The week before last, the MIB gave its green light for the start of the full community testing, meaning together with the CSDs, tri-party agents, but also central bank counterparties. And we will do that as from early July. This decision from the MIB is based on 3 main elements. One is the software readiness. We believe that the software is ready for it. The second point is the progress that we observed with the Eurosystem acceptance testing and also with the central bank testing. And the third point is the overall readiness of the market players, which is based on the feedback that we collect via our readiness monitoring framework. Now, on these 3 dimensions, the MIB concluded that there is sufficient progress to confirm the start of community. We call it CTP2A, as planned on the 10th of July for the function testing. But the team will remind you that before that, there is work planned on the migration rehearsal, which is starting actually 2 weeks earlier on the 26th of June. So the colleagues will again give you more information about this. But I want to share with you 2 caveats regarding this decision. The first one is that the MIB observed that not all national central banks have managed to complete the testing and the entire scope of their tests. So some have gone very far with a very good coverage, but it's fair to say that others are a bit less advanced. Still, when we combine the results of the most advanced NCBs with the results gathered from the Eurosystem acceptance testing, the MIB concluded that there is sufficient confidence on the quality of the software. The second caveat that I want to share with you is that the MIB took good note that there are still some changes and fixes to be introduced ahead of the start of the coming testing stage, so CTP2A, or shortly thereafter. For instance, there is one change request which is needed to cover the case where there are many security settlement systems operating in ECMS, but under a unique CSD in T2S. So it's a bit technical, but it's one element for which a change must be introduced, because this creates actually some blockages, for instance, in terms of mobilization and demobilization of marketable assets. So these two caveats mean that at the start of CTP2A, we will have a staggered approach. So the majority of the function will be released for testing. The team will detail that today in the focus session. But we have to keep in mind that some last features will be released only at a later point in time. And following the same logic as we did for the T2, T2S consolidation project, we will deliver on a regular basis a document that we call testing conditions, which is actually organizing the communication on the release of those last features. Moving now to the agenda. So we have organized the today's session around 3 building blocks. The first one is, in the first one, we'll provide you with detailed information on the organization of the use of testing. So Bamini will cover this topic. Then we'll continue with the presentation for the preparation work for the migration. Here, Anaisa will be the master of ceremony. And we will conclude with the third agenda topic, which is an overview of the readiness of the various ECMS actors, and Odile will take care of that. And if you add to this, Eileen, that you are the big organizer of this event, as a side remark, you can see that we take that gender diversity very seriously at the ECB. Now, joke aside, the main message I want to pass to you today is one, ECMS is well underway. We have 10 months left to complete the last milestones for this project. On all sides, a lot of effort was done, on one hand to implement ECMS, but also on your side to adapt your own systems. A lot of work was done in terms of implementation, internal testing, but now has come the time where we have to proceed to end-to-end testing in a fully fledged manner. This will be done in an environment that we call pre-production, meaning that the setup and the testing conditions will be as close as possible from the production conditions. And the message I want to pass here is that it's key that you develop your own testing plans in line with the overall scheduling of the user testing for ECMS. It goes without saying that there will be still some challenges ahead of us. Just to mention a few, there is a Swift release 2023, which is coming soon. This topic was discussed in length in all relevant bodies, including the AMISECO. There is also, we are well aware that there is also some challenges stemming from the compliance with score standards. And at the same point in time, we acknowledge that such multifaceted projects means that those challenges are inevitable and that further clarification will be needed in the future. We cannot exclude neither that there could be some changes, but it will be our duty to reduce that to the minimum possible. And to support that, we have a governance in place. So the main stream is obviously the interactions that you have, the bilateral interactions that you have with your respective NCBs. Beyond those bilateral exchanges, every NCB has the possibility to organize ad hoc workshops at national level. This is again left at the discretion of the NCBs to organize. Some of you are aware that beyond this, we have also organized in the past centralized workshops with CSDs and TPAs, because the impact on them is probably bigger than average. We did that in the past. We found that very useful and efficient, and the MIB confirmed that we should continue doing this and maybe even intensify in case of need. And last but not least, we will of course organize additional focus sessions like this one to organize a smooth exchange of information and give you the opportunity to raise any questions you have. From a more general perspective, ECMS is a key element in our strategy to deepen the financial integration across Europe. You all know that on the cash side, we have renewed our RTGS system with the launch of T2 a few months ago. On that occasion, we also enhanced the management of liquidity across the target services. That was by means of delivering the central liquidity management module called CLM. Of course, on the security side, we have target 2 securities. And here ECMS is our last piece in the triangle, which covers the collateral management. Now, to close here, I was told from the team that there is a huge number of participants. As Eileen just told you, this event is live streamed. We will also record it for those who would want to watch it at a later point in time. And it's probably time for me now to wish you a fruitful event. Again, don't hesitate to raise questions. For us, a good session is one where there is a lot of questions and where we manage to address as many as possible. And now back to you, Eileen. I will come back, I think, later for some closing words. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Yeah, so excellent. So as Dimitri said, we have a big program ahead of us. And as all projects, we want to be agile here at the beginning. So we are actually moving at 2 topics. So just to make sure everyone's prepared and active to go here. So we are starting today with the migration topic. So we're going to start with migration and preparing for the go live. And I will move over to Anisha to, yes, run us through these slides. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. I hope you can hear me well and can see me well. So yes, indeed, today I will be presenting the migration topic. I'm part of the ECB coordination for the migration, and we will guide you through what is the migration for the ECMS and in essence, this preparation for the go live, which is the migration. So if we can start here, it's just let's say a summary of what is the migration. So basically, the migration process aims at migrating or creating all of the necessary data to prepare the ECMS system for go live, in this case on the 8th of April 2024. Because we are not starting, even though the system is starting from zero, there is already collateral management in place. And so we just need to recreate what's in the local systems in ECMS. And of course, all of the other reference data that might be slightly different from the local systems. So that's the main goal, is to create or migrate all of this data. And so let's say the migration is split mostly in 2 stages, if we can call it like this. We have the pre-migration and the migration weekend. The pre-migration is mostly focused on the reference data, and the migration weekend on the transactional data. Then if you look more on the structure, we have here a very high-level summary, but the pre-migration stage has different phases in it. It starts with the connectivity testing, and on the right side, you can see who is involved in each of these phases. Then we have the pre-migration, the pre-evaluation and the evaluation. Basically, this evaluation phase, because we're not going to talk about it too much today, it's just an evaluation of how the migration is going until that moment, and it will be the base for the go-no-go decision from MIB. The pre-evaluation is just because the evaluation is too short in terms of data. So we will start preparing a report, but this is all not relevant for the counterparties or the CSCs and TPA. So it will be mostly the NCBs and the ECB. Nevertheless, of course, the NCBs might request you some information in terms of your activities, if they were completed or not. Then on the migration, then we will have the go-no-go. Can we go back one slide? The go-no-go decision. Then we have the migration stage, which is split into preparation weekend, migration weekend, and then of course the post-go live stage. And just to inform that the documentation and the activities described, they cover all of the tasks expected to be performed in general by a certain type of actor. But for ECMS migration, most of the activities are the responsibility of the ECMS service desk and the NCBs. Nevertheless, each NCB might also, due to some national particularities, ask you for more tasks or more information that are not described here, because they are more relevant at the national level. So they are not included in this description that we will do next. Okay, this is just a warning. So I think we can move to the next slide where we have then the journey. How do we go from the start to the end to the go live? The migration process is, we have a very clear destination, which is having the system ready for the go live business day on Monday, the 8th of April. So it all starts actually before even step one. So there is this preparation by the ECMS actors that needs to occur in order for we even start the connectivity stage. That preparation by the actors is really important. We are focusing it here because already from the connectivity stage in pre-prod, we can see that there are already lessons learned to take. So part of this preparation is the NSP selection, the e-ordering that you need to do with the NSP, the CGU subscription, and preparing the migration registration forms. All of these are necessary steps that you need to take in preparation for starting the migration process. Then we move to step one, which is actually the submission of the registration forms to the NCBs. From there, the NCBs will take the necessary information to set up the parties, and then all parties will do the connectivity to ECMS via ESMIC. This is, of course, only valid for the counterparties and the actors that will connect directly via ESMIC. And this should be done upon green light from the NCB. Then from there, once the connectivity is established in U2A and A2A, when applicable in A2A for the actors, the NCB will actually migrate the reference data for the NCB and the counterparties. At the same time, both the NCB and the CSD will start the setup of T2S for ECMS, which is step 4. And later in the pre-migration, so all of this is still pre-migration, one of the latest steps in the pre-migration is the counterparty accessing ECMS and setting up their own reference data, which we will see later. It's mostly the users. So this will be done at the latest stage of the pre-migration. Once the pre-migration is completed, as you saw, we have this evaluation and pre-evaluation phase that are not described here. And then we go to preparation week. So the preparation week is actually the period of time that comes before the migration weekend and will allow us to prepare the system for the actual migration of transactional data. So it includes things like initialization of the database for common reference data or migration of credit claims data, etc. For this activity, really only the NCB and the CST TPAs will be involved. There will be no involvement of the counterparties foreseen for this stage of the migration. Once the preparation week is completed, then we enter the migration weekend on Friday at the end of the day. And here again, only the NCBs, the CSTs and TPAs would be involved, but mostly the NCBs. And it will include then the migration of the transactional data, for example, collateral positions, etc. All of this transactional data will be migrated by the NCB. And then once all of this is completed and it's confirmed after the reconciliation of data that everything is okay, then if considered completely, then we've reached the end of the migration and we are now in the operational phase of the ECMS. So that's the road for the migration process. On this slide, what you will see is just that then in terms of what was described, what's the timeline. And you can see that we've also included the steps here from the previous slide to help you guide when these steps are done. So as you can see, we have the start of the connectivity setup and execution on the 4th of September. So it's quite soon. And this is actually step 2. So the step 1 in the preparation we talk needs to happen before that, now during the summer. And that's a point I would like to highlight to everyone. And then we start the pre-migration process on the 8th of January, and it will last until the 23rd of February. The The activities for the counterparty on the pre-migration will probably be on February, not on the start, as I mentioned before. You can see the pre-evaluation phase will run in parallel to the pre-migration. So we are just preparing, start to prepare the report based on what was done until that moment in time in pre-migration. And then we have the evaluation phase occurring after that. Basically, it's where the MIB will discuss and decide if it's a go or no-go decision, which is scheduled for the 8th of March. As you can see, it's 1 month before the go live. So that this could be so that we have time. This is also something that was learned from the consolidation project, in which it's considered that we should have enough buffer and time to take the decisions. So here the go no go is 1 month before the actual go live date. Then this preparation week, it's around a 2-week period starting on the 25th of March. But again, we need to be mindful that there will be weekends and also target holidays here, because we have the Easter weekend. It's the weekend before the ECMS go live. So those days we should not, in principle, have activities. So we have here a bit of a longer period for this preparation week. And then on the migration weekend, it will go then from the 5th of April to the 8th of April. The point of no return is, of course, Friday. Once we give the green light to start migrating the transactional data, that's it. We should not return back. And then the go live is on the 8th of April. Okay, I think there are questions in the chat. I don't know, Eileen, should I reply as I go, or should we reply all at the end?
We can also reply all at the end if that's better for you, whatever suits you the best.
Yes, maybe then we can reply all at the end.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay, so then what you have now for the next slides is a bit of more detail on the steps that we described before the journey. So the step 1 was the migration registration form for production needs to be submitted to the NCBs. So this starts actually, first of all, the NCBs need to distribute to their counterparty CSTs and TPAs these registration forms. And then the actors need to submit it to the NCB, the filled-in registration forms. The deadline will be communicated by the NCB itself. Nevertheless, it needs to be sufficiently in advance of the 4th of September. So 4th of September is the actual start of the connectivity. So because the NCBs need to review the forms, make sure that everything is okay, they will also need for some part of the data, for example, for CST, TPAs, and NCBs, this setup is done by the ECMS service desk. So also this will need to be submitted there. So all of this process takes time. And for that reason, even though the date will be communicated individually by each NCB, depends on each NCB, it will do not take the 4th of September as the date for submitting reports. It needs to be much more in advance than the 1st of September. So this is the highlight here. So you will submit these registration forms to your NCB, and then the NCB will verify the forms and submit them to the ECMS service desk. It should be 2 months in advance of the execution of the start of the phase, so 2 months in advance of the 4th of September. So if we think about it this way, it will be very soon that you will start receiving these registration forms from your NCBs, and this activity is probably ongoing during the summertime. So here it's important to note this. Besides this, and we put it at the bottom, again, as a lesson learned already from the connectivity in pre-production, besides these migration registration forms that you need to submit to the NCB, in order to execute the connectivity, there are preconditions and steps that you need to execute in advance. And these are the selection of the NSP, as we mentioned, but requesting the e-ordering, the CGU subscription at NSP level, etc. All of these details you can find in the Target Services Connectivity Guide, but you should execute them way in advance of the actual 4th of September date, because you need time to execute them so that on the 4th of September you have all of the conditions and you don't have issues. We saw, for example, for pre-prod that some actors were still only now requesting, for example, the e-ordering or the CGU subscription. That means that you cannot actually test the connectivity, and it also takes a bit of time for this to be set on SP side. So really take the time to execute this so that on the 4th of September you have all of the conditions to start the test immediately if necessary. Okay, so we can go to the next one. So that is just a kind of a timeline, but here it's again, what are these registration forms? Just this is the only part I will cover here. These forms include all of the data that identifies the party, like what's the RIAD address, the BICs, what are the technical addresses, what is the admin user for the counterparty, contact information, etc., that will be used by the NCB to set, or the ECMS service desk, to set up the party for the connectivity testing. And then in the case of the counterparties, some of the data will be used later during the pre-migration to set up the rest of the data. So during the connectivity, we only set up the data needed for connectivity and later to the pre-migration. So the registration form actually serves both the connectivity phase and the pre-migration phase. This needs to be done by all actors. And then, as I mentioned, the NCBs will communicate the submission deadline to the NCB, but this should be done approximately 2 months in advance of the connectivity testing phase start. Okay, we can, I think, move to the next slide. Then the actual connectivity. So the goal, of course, is to ensure full end-to-end connectivity to the ECMS via ESMIC, so to ensure that all communication between ECMS actors and the ECMS is working properly for A2A, which means correct inbound and outbound message transmission, and then U2A, which is the access to the actual ECMS GUI, so you will need to land in the ECMS GUI page. So this is the objective of this step. All of the actors will need to do it. It's not all at the same time kind of situation. So we will start with the NCBs and the CSTs and TPAs. And once the NCBs have confirmed their own connectivity and they have set up the counterparty as parties in ECMS, then the counterparties will be given a green light to start. So in terms of planning, how this looks like is, first of all, the stage, it's going from the 4th of September to the 24th of November. So it's a long period. In principle, the first 2 weeks are dedicated. It's similar to what we have in pre-prod. We will have the first 2 weeks dedicated to the 4CB activities for preparing the environment. And then the NCB, CSTs, and TPA connectivity starts. Once the NCBs have finished setting up the counterparties as parties in ECMS, the NCBs will give individually the green light to their counterparties in their community to start their own connectivity, the counterparty connectivity. And so this, in terms of planning, this is how it goes. We cannot put here exactly the dates, just for the reason that we still need to finish the connectivity phase, take all the lessons learned, and see if we need to update the schedules. Nevertheless, and also because it depends on how long it takes to the NCB to set up the counterparty data to give the green light, we cannot put a specific date yet, but we can assess that it would be approximately 3 to 4 weeks after the start of the connectivity. So the connectivity starts on the 4th of September, and then about 3 to 4 weeks later, the counterparty connectivity should start. Okay. Then it's okay. We can move to the next slide. So referring to the next step, the next step is the reference data migration. So we are really now on the pre-migration phase, and then it's all about creating reference data in the ECMS. This will be done mostly by the NCB, but there is also some activities expected by the counterparties, and then there is, of course, at the same time, the setup of T2S for ECMS. So that's exactly what you can see here. The step 4, which was the setup of T2S for ECMS, will go in parallel to the other activities because, again, it's not executed in ECMS itself, it's in T2S. So it goes in parallel. It can go the whole duration of the pre-migration phase. And then the migration of reference data. Basically, the NCBs will capture their own data and the data from the counterparties based on the registration forms, but also on data from the current NCB local systems if that's necessary. And then the counterparty will set up their own reference data, which in this case, the only thing that should be there, it's mostly the creation of the counterparty own users with the respective access rights. So if we go to the next slides, we will see the details. Apologies. So if we start by the migration of the reference data by the NCBs, what's in scope here is the NCB's own reference data, which we'll not cover here, and then the counterparties, as I mentioned, based on the registration forms or local systems. It will include the data from the counterparty, like the contact information and addresses of the counterparty that, as I mentioned, comes as part of the registration forms. And on the NCB on data is something like users. We have the accounts of the NCBs and the counterparties pools setup, configuration of credit lines, etc. So all that is reference data. There is no positions, there is no values. It's really about saying, okay, this counterparty has this pool, which operations are allowed, what are the accounts linked to this pool, does it have a credit line or doesn't have a credit line. So this is the type of configurations we are talking here. Only the NCBs are involved in this activity directly in ECMS. So the execution of the activity is by the NCBs. And then it's planned for the period of the pre-migration from the 8th of January to the 23rd. Of course, it will be a bit less, but we will know these dates better once we finalize now the after test 4. We will have the final production schedule, so we will have the dates for this one of the pre-migration. Okay, if we go to the next step, then the T2S setup for ECMS. So what is needed, this will go on during the whole of the pre-migration phase. Basically, the CSTs and the NCBs need to perform certain configuration steps in T2S to allow ECMS to communicate with T2S and both ways. And for the different functionalities, we are here talking about auto-collateralization processes or mobilization, demobilization processes. So this will be for the ECMS and T2S to converge in these two activities. There is certain configuration steps that are needed, and this will be done by the CSTs and the NCBs during this preparation, during this pre-migration part of the migration process. So that's why it's also, you can see it's from the 8th of January to the 23rd of February. And then lastly, the next activity, which is really the counterparty setup of reference data. So this is, we can say, almost like the only activity besides connectivity. It's the only activity in terms of migration of data that is expected from the counterparties. So a direct, let's say, a direct activity in ECMS migration. There could be other activities, as I mentioned, besides this, that the NCBs request of you in terms of submission of data or confirming the data, I don't know. But in terms of actual activity that will be described in the playbooks and in terms of migration of data by the counterparties, this is the only activity expected. And here is basically, once the NCB has finished setting up the other reference data, the NCB will give you a green light, and then the counterparties should be able to capture their own remaining reference data, which in this case should be mostly just the users and the access rights to those users. The planning, as I mentioned, it will be upon the green light and during this pre-migration phase. All of the other activities need to be completed before the counterparties can execute this step. So in terms of planning, it is expected that the activity will take place only on the last 2 to 3 weeks of the phase. So not until February, you will be expected to take any action in ECMS for the pre-migration activities. So that will be it. I will also maybe just highlight that we are not covering it here, but it's in the slides, the support level and the key documents. So for that activity, we also listed the key documents that you should use to be prepared for executing the activity. Then Once we finish that, we finish the pre-migration phase, we will have the go-no-go decision, and then we enter the preparation week. What is the preparation week? The preparation week, as I mentioned, aims at migrating or creating reference data that is considered more volatile. So for example, eligible assets list or the eligible asset prices, they are kind of a reference data, a common reference data for all of the system. But we can also not do it during the pre-migration because it's not stable enough as data. It changes more frequently. And then any transactional data that can be created in advance of the weekend, we will also use the preparation week for that because the goal is to reduce the volume or the number of tasks to execute during the migration weekend because it is a more limited timeline. Plus, we want to reduce the risk of something going wrong during the migration weekend that then puts at cause the go live on Monday. So we have this preparation week phase, which I think it's something that's not common to the other processes of the other target services. So it's a bit of a different concept, but the goal here is to do whatever we can do in advance of the migration weekend, but that cannot be done also in the pre-migration. So here the expected activities will be something like initialization of the database for common reference data. And here the examples are legible asset lists or the prices of the legible assets, etc. We have the initialization of the ECMS data warehouse and the data feed to the NCB. We will have the setup of credit claims. Here is not the credit claims positions, but really all of the other data that you need to actually process a credit claim. So this will be done here. And then we will have the migration of the core protection events, the switch on T2S and CLM for ECMS so that the other systems do the changes needed for ECMS to be able to communicate with them and operate together. And then we have also the sending of the auto-collateralization support data to T2S. We will also initialize it during this preparation week. As you can see, all of these activities are mostly on the ECMS service desk and the NCB. And then there is one activity, which is the migration of the core protection that also involves the CST. There might be, especially for the setup of credit claims, the need of the NCBs to liaise with their counterparties, but this is not described in the documents because it really depends on a particular national level how the NCBs do these activities today and how they will do it in the future. So this part is not described here. Nevertheless, it could be something that is required by your NCB. This is just, but as I mentioned, is not in the scope of our migration documentation and or this presentation. So of course, this is planned from the 25th of March to the 5th of April, approximately 2 weeks. And as you can see, the counterparties are not directly involved unless the NCB requests something. So if we go to the next one, is close to the finish line, we will have the migration weekend. And as mentioned, the purpose is mostly to migrate all types of transactional data that is there, but also prepare the system for the daytime processing on the Monday go live business day. So the expected activities will be the migration of collateral positions for marketable assets, credit claims, externally managed collateral, tri-party, FTD, and cash as collateral. The migration of the credit positions, and here we're referring to open market operations and credit freezing. Migration of core protection events, if this is something that could not be finished or you need to update from the preparation week. All of the reconciliation activities, and here we mean every time that something is migrated to the ECMS, it is expected that the NCB reconciles the data as well. So the NCB should check that after the migration activity, what they see in the ECMS is exactly what they expected to see and exactly what they intended to migrate. So we will have all of these reconciliation activities done. And once it's confirmed that the data migrated is correct, then we will move on into preparing the system for the business day. So we will have full revaluation, basically for the credit and collateral positions to be revaluated for the business day. We will have the calculation and the sending of the credit line value to CLM, just to make sure that the ECMS and the CLM are aligned in terms of the credit line. The actors involved are the NCBs, the CSTs, and the TPAs. And yes, I think we can move to the next one. Here is just the key documents that you can find You can see 4 of them have the links. The other ones that do not are the ones that are to be published by the NCBs, and we are already highlighting if they have been made available or not when feasible. So that's it, I think, in terms of slides. So then I think we can, Eileen, maybe
Pick a
go
few
for the
questions.
questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
excellent. Thank you so much, Anita, for this. A very good presentation. So I just want to mention to everybody, we will be publishing the slides, and this would also then help you with the slide before here, where we have links to some of the specific documents. So everything will be published afterwards, so you can go and find the direct links there. And also now, if you are in the live stream, you can also send again questions via email to us. But I'm not letting you go yet, Anisha, because we do have a few questions for you. So there's a few in here. There's a few, but you mentioned this, but maybe you can just highlight again a bit on the timeline again. So people are asking if we will publish the timeline, and also when that it would be confirmed. But you already mentioned this a bit on the confirmation of the date. So maybe you want to highlight that again.
Yes, maybe I can explain. So the overall timeline that we saw in the slides, of course, they are available. They are here in the slides that will be shared. They are also in the ECB website. So whenever we're talking about when is the connectivity phase, when is the pre-migration, these dates are shared. What will not be published in the ECB website is the actual schedule of the pre-migration and the migration. So the schedule of, let's say, the connectivity, the dedicated schedule of the connectivity phase, the pre-migration phase, the preparation weekend, and the migration weekend phases, they will not be shared directly in the website, but they are made available. So maybe, Eileen, can we just go back one slide, because then it makes it easier for the colleagues to see. These, whatever it's relevant for the parties, will be shared as part of this ECMS migration document. We have prepared it. It is based on these playbooks, and the playbooks include the schedule. So whenever we are preparing this ECMS migration document, we will include there the scheduled activities that are of relevance for the actors. And then this document, the ECMS migration document, will be made available by the NCBs to their community. Why are we doing it like this? Because as I kept mentioning during the presentation, there are certain activities that can be requested from you by your NCBs directly. And the NCBs might wish to include this in this schedule that will be provided to you. So that's why we're not publishing it in the ECB website as well. But it will be made available by your NCBs. So that's the final question. The final answer is it will be made available through this ECMS migration document that is then provided by your NCBs directly.
Super, thank you for this. There's also a question in here. I think you answered it again, but maybe you want to then highlight a bit on the registration forms. So we have somebody asking whether the form for the prod is then different than the one that we already handed in the test pre-prod phase.
So we are still finalizing it, because of course that's the beauty of testing, is that you always find something that needs a bit of improvement. So we have identified some improvements to be made in the forms, but they shouldn't be overall very different from what you have received before. So it should be the same structure, the same information required in principle. What we might adapt is some explanations, because we saw that for some fields they were not correctly inputted, maybe perhaps because it was not clear, the explanation. And I think for the counterparties, I'm trying to think of memory. I don't know if there will be any new information required, but let's say we can say that at least 90% of the form, it will be exactly as it was for pre-prod. Yes.
Super, thank you. We also have one, but I think that's more for the NCBs, but I'll let you decide on that. Will the local NCB share the reference data with the counterparties?
Well, this part I don't know exactly what is meant. So if we can see the question in two ways. First of all, is if the data that will be migrated to the ECMS by the NCBs will be shared with the counterparties. and this I cannot reply. It's something that only the NCBs can reply. And then the other way we can take the question is what is available for the counterparties to see in ECMS. And here really depends on the type of data and of the access rights that will be given to the users. So I would advise to search through the documentation that was made available for the ECMS. I think even if you use the counterparty user handbook, that should already give you an idea of the screens you have access to. So it should allow you to understand which data you can actually see in the ECMS. So I would say that depending on what was the the goal of the question, either you need to ask the NCB. For the other one, you can try to do it by deducting it from the GUI, the user handbook for counterparties that is also linked here. It's the before last row of the table, and it's published on the ECB website. But you can also always ask your NCB for support in terms of what data you can have access to in ECMS.
Thank you, Anisha. There's a few more questions in here, but maybe we just take one more and then you will, I'll set you free.
No, it's no problem.
So there was one here on the control processes for counterparties, whether they would be useful, which of these control processes can the counterparties usefully support during the migration weekend?
So in terms of controls, let's put it like first of all, there's two things. So the activities that need to be done by the counterparties and how we will know the progress. It's the same way as we did in pre-production. So the NCBs need to report to us. So this part is part of the NCB. I mean, we don't reflect it here, but the NCB will ask you, how are you doing with your activities? And then they will include this in the reports to the ECB. So this is the first part. Then in terms of somehow making sure that the data that is migrated to the ECMS is correct, as I mentioned, we do have reconciliation processes that are for the NCB to execute. Now, it can be that your NCB requests you as a counterparty to, once the migration is concluded, to log in to the ECMS and check that you have access, check that you can see the data clearly in the pools, or even to reconcile. But this is, again, something that will be decided at national level by the NCBs if they want to request you to do this or not. So I hope this was the question.
Super. Thank you so much, Anisha. I will let you go. So we move on with the next presentation for today. So we still have a few questions in there, but then I would again advise you then to follow our newsletter or the social media accounts. We will be sharing a lot of stuff with you from now on for the next year. So there's a lot of information out there on the website. So I think all your questions will be answered, or as Anisha said, via your NCB. So we're going to move to the next one, which is on user testing. So we have our next speaker with us here. Bamini, yes, you are there. So super, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, good morning, all of you. So you've seen now the main objective of the project is finally to achieve successful migration on the migration weekend and from the first business day, yeah, on the 8th of April. So to achieve this, we have several user testing phases, yeah. So here you can see similar to migration, yeah, we have a journey here in the user testing phase, so which we have to go through to ensure that we have done all the testing activities safely and correctly, sufficiently, and the quality is good enough, and then we are ready for the migration weekend and then for the the day, first business day. So if we go from the critical steps here, if you see here, like the first one being the registration form for the user testing. So there that's the timeline wise, yeah, it's done. Yeah, So the registration form has been received by the NCBs, and now it's being processed. And then as a next step, once that's submitted, and then we have the connectivity testing phase. Yeah, that's the point where the users, yeah, they try to connect to the system ECMS via the SMIC, and then to ensure the connectivity is there, the technical connectivity is there, so that they can be ready to start the testing activity when it's open, when the environment is open. That's the second step. And then if we move on to the next one, so once we have established the connectivity, and the next step is to set up the reference data. So that's the next step. So that's the current one that's now ongoing. And then the next, as a next step, so we have four where the NCP, the user testing, the counterparties as such would do the reference data setup. Yeah, and then after the reference data setup is done, then we go to the execution, the functional testing execution phase. That's now step number 5. And then and then another critical step here is also the fundamental test cases. Yeah, so here we have this fundamental test cases prepared, and then yes, so the requirement is that these test cases are executed and passed within this timeline, so which we will also see, yeah, in the next slides. And then of course we have to do the migration rehearsals to ensure the playbook, it's working fine. So there are different critical steps. These are different critical steps. So now in the next coming slides, we will see each steps where we stand, yeah, and what is the scope of it, and what is that we need to do, to looking forward as well. So then we can go to the next slide, Eileen. Yeah, so here you will see, so where we, the previous one we saw the critical steps, yeah. So here you see with respect to the timeline, these say the 7 steps, yeah, which and when these would be executed. So if you see here, there are, yes, you see there are some 7 steps, and then the first one, as I said, the migration of the registration form, yeah, this is done in January, yeah, that was the timeline. And then the connectivity test is started, yeah, and still a few connectivity set, some few users, we see that it's still connectivity is going on. So that's going to be finishing in June, yeah, so that you're ready for the functional testing phase. As mentioned in the beginning, the functional testing phase starts on the 10th of July, and then you will be ready for this community testing phases. And then there, if you see, we have 3 different phases: 2A, community testing phase 2A, community testing phase 2B, and community testing phase 2C. And there, in these 3 phases, then you there, that's when you will in parallel, yeah, you will also do the fundamental test case execution and ensure that you finish all these by the end of 2G. And then we do the migration rehearsals also in parallel, yeah. So that's with respect to the timeline wise, yeah, that's where we stand on the different activities, different critical steps. Okay, now we go to the step, yeah, each step one by one. Going to the first step as such for the registration form. So here the scope is basically the it's fill in the registration form and then submit it to your NCBs. And then here the form should be prepared by the actors, CSDs, GPAs, and then the counterparties, and then which will be taken by the NCBs. And then this activity should have been completed. Yeah. So then the NCBs would do the setup, they process the registration form and do the setup in the user testing environment. Yeah. So here, of course, if you have any issues, you would have contacted your service desk, NCB's National Service Desk team, and I think we and ISA also touched upon on the registration form. So yeah, so this is it. Yeah. Good. Then we go to the one on the youth connectivity testing. So here, as you all know, the scope is basically, as I also touched upon a little bit, the objective is basically to ensure end-to-end connectivity to ECMS, yeah, via the SMIC platform. So here, why do we do this? Of course, to ensure that there is a communication happening between the user system and then the ECMS. Yeah, it's working fine. So on both the channels, on the A2A and on the U2A side, so that you are ready to start the testing execution. So, and this is something for applicable for all the actors, so NCBs, CSD, CPAs, and counterparties. With respect to the planning, the timeline wise, if you see, so basically, as I said, the activity should have been completed, was planned to be completed by 26th of May. And in case if you have not done it, then the U2A connectivity then should be done by the counterparties. If in case if you have not done, it should be established latest by the 23rd of June. That's Friday, 23rd of June, so that you start your pre-migration rehearsals from the 26th of June. Yeah, and then with respect to the A2A connectivity, if this is not established, then we request the actor to contact the NCBs to discuss on the planning, when you want to do this and when you want to start the testing with the A2A connectivity setup done. So such kind of discussion we request the actor to discuss with your NCB. Yeah, and in case of if you face some difficulties with respect to the connectivity and you're not able to achieve it by 23rd, then you can pursue the connectivity activity from the 10th of July, because the window from the 26th of June until 7th of July would be used for the pre-migration and the preparation week in the user testing environment, and that's and hence we propose then you can continue, yeah, the connectivity activity from the 10th of July, yeah, post the pre-migration rehearsal activities. That's yeah, and I think the support wise you're must be very aware of it already now for any technical problems that you face. Yeah, you can the connectivity, you can talk to your NSP support team, and then of course ECMS NCB National Service Desk. And then for the NCBs, if they are going to face any issues in here, then the ECMS Service Desk, the 4CB side, they would be helping out. So that's then with respect to the key documents, I will not go through here about the key documents, because you have at the last slide, you have all the key documents and also the links that are relevant there. That's published in the ECB website. You have the relevant web links there. So so here we are just referring to the documents from where you can get all this information. So I would not go into details on the key documents in the coming slides. Yeah. Okay. Then so we finished with the connectivity. If you're finished with the next step, as you know, it's a setting up of you have the access to the environment. So now you have to do the setup of the reference data. So here, as a first step of the setup of reference data, which is now currently ongoing, is a setup that's being done by the national central banks, NCBs. Yeah, they are now currently capturing their own data as well as the data that's received from the counterparties via the registration form. So both the actions are being now currently performed, and it's ongoing. And then comes the next step. That's the setup by the counterparties. So as soon as the NCBs, finish this, they will give the green light, finish their data setup. They will give the green light to the counterparties, and then so that they can proceed with the capturing of, so that you can proceed with the capturing of your own reference data. For example, the user creation, access rights, account creation, such things could be done. And the current plan is to start this from the 26th of June. Yeah. So that's how we do on the reference data setup. Then we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so here, so we said there are two steps on the reference data setup. So, but the one first set that should be done by the NCBs. So here, the timeline wise, if you see, planning from the 29th of May until 23rd of June, and that's what I said. It's ongoing. Yeah, and another option, there is a second pre-migration rehearsal that would be planned. Yeah, if needed, then it would be happening on the 27th, starting from 27th of September until 3rd of October, and that's an optional one. Yeah, we would see how things are moving on now from the 29th and 23rd of June, and then we see if there is a need. Yeah, then we would go for the second pre-migration rehearsal. And that's for the NCBs. It's always the first level of support comes. We comes from the ECMS service desks, the 4CP side. Yeah. That's the first step on the reference, and then yeah, exactly. Thanks, Eileen. So then we go to the setup of reference data by the counterparties. There, I think that I also saw some questions in the chat from the previous presentation, where they were asking when the activities would start for the counterparties in the user testing. So the setup of reference data as such would be starting from the 26th of June until 30th of June. This is the window that you would be doing your data setup. And again, yeah, similar to the NCB reference data activity, this is there is a second pre-migration rehearsal that could be planned from the 4th until 10th of October. And of course, yeah, we have to see how the first one goes and then have to decide it accordingly. And then here for you, for the counterparties, the support, first level support would be provided by the NCB's National Service Desk team. Yeah. And good. So now that we are done with the reference data setup, connectivity, reference data setup, if it's done, now then we are ready for doing the functional testing, which is what is planned to start on the 10th of July. Yeah, that's what we call as CTP 2A. Yeah, so that's it. So how do we go about on this one? So green light to start the start UT. This is what initially Dimitri also mentioned, that this green light is now there. So the functional testing would be starting from the 10th of July. Yeah, and on which the scope wise, the scope wise, the functionality. So the idea is to go with the staggered approach, by functionality. So as and when a good maturity, with this good quality testing is performed on a particular functionality, and this functionality would be then confirmed as is ready for testing to the counterparties. So that's what we call a staggered approach. If we follow the staggered approach, the first item that we would currently planned and targeted is the mobilization and the demobilization of the marketable assets, and then the fundamental test cases that are related to this particular functional area. Yeah, that's the functionality A. Yes, so we call here functionality, and that's the target. Yeah, and this functionality, currently the testing is ongoing, here, and we see that it's going on smooth, better. It's getting better and better. So then that's the reason then we propose to start with this functional testing area. Yeah. And so that's the first step. So that's on the 10th of July that would be happening. So here functionalities available for testing and the potential testing limitations are communicated to the community. So the first thing is functionality available for testing. This is what I mentioned now. And then with respect to the mobilization, demobilization of marketables, let's take this as an example. If we see that there are going to be few limitations or some restrictions, and then this is something that we would be communicating in advance to the counterparties, and that would be communicated via this ECMS testing conditions document. Yeah. And yes, so that's what is the staggered approach. So we start with testing a functionality A, and then moving on. Can you just go one? Can you, yeah, and then we go on to adding on another functionality like B, C, and then so aim is to continue this testing across the different community testing phase like 2A, 2B, and 2C. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm done here. Okay, then, so yeah, I give a quick overview of the staggered approach. So here, there's a scope. I also mentioned here. So let's go here, on this table. So the scope, the community testing activities organized across the different community testing phase, as I said, and 2A, 2A, 2B, 2B, and 2C, and then we follow the staggered approach per functionality, which was also explained earlier. So in parallel to this, so we have this major block, in parallel to this functional testing, what all are going to be done. So if you see here, the first thing we say is operational testing. Operational testing would be happening in parallel, and then the business day testing phase would be happening in parallel, and then of course there are still some coordinated testing that needs to be done, like for example, billing, Yeah, so market policy operation. So such kind of things, if we have to coordinate across different users, then such kind of this is what we call as coordinated tests, and such kind of coordinated tests would also be happening in parallel to the main functional, testing stream. And the planning and the conditions and all these information would be for these coordinator tests, yeah, would be communicated and will be documented in the ECMS testing conditions document, and that would be something we would be sharing on a regular basis with will be published on a regular basis, yeah, in the ECB website for you. And so that's the scope. And then with respect to actors, yeah, you're aware of it's applicable for all. And then with respect to the planning wise, so you can see the dates here. So the community testing phase, and yeah, it's 2A for the counterparties. As such, it starts with the pre-migration rehearsal on the 26th of June, and then there it goes until 20th of September. And here, this phase 2A would be tested with T2S and the CLM. Yeah, the target services are the two target services connected, interconnected. Yeah, and then we go to the next phase where we would be using simulators instead of the target services. So here, this phase 2B, which would be running for approximately 8 weeks. Yeah, there it's starting from 21st of September, and there it would be running without interconnection of the T2S and CLM. And then we come again, we finally at the 2C, we switch back where we connect back to the target, all the target services. It's very close to the production condition. So then the 2C community testing 2C starts then from the 17th of November, and then it goes until 16th of February. And as I said, then you can see there are some parallel activities that's going to be done: operational testing phase, business day testing phase, and then coordinated. So these are mentioned here. So operational testing phase runs from 28th of August until 31st of January. That's the window. But then it will happen on a specific day. So in this window, the testing would be happening on specific timeline. Yeah, specific dates, and this would be communicated. And then we have this business day testing phase where it runs from 4th until 7th of December, and then the second one also from 22nd till 8th of February, and where it Monday to Thursday you would be the system as such would be running in a schedule similar to in production, and then but except on Fridays. Yeah, that's what we call as business day testing phase. Yeah, and then coordinated test, as I said, and the planning and the dates, all these would be communicated as per uh, via ECMS testing conditions document. Okay, and that's it. Good. And the sixth step here, the fundamental test cases. So this is another objective that needs to be also achieved. Yeah, during this community testing phase. So here, the scope. If you see the scope, the ECMS user testing fundamental test cases should be successfully executed by each actor. Yeah, so it also depends on your actor type. Then yeah, that some of the fundamental test cases may not be applicable. So based on your role, your actor type, then yeah, you have to execute all the fundamental test cases that are applicable to you, and then the results to be provided to your respective national central bank. Yeah. And the ECMS actors then report the progress to the NCBs for the consolidation by the ECB on a monthly basis. So you would be reporting the progress of your test execution to your NCBs, and then ECB would be collecting this information from the NCB to see the progress of the test execution, yeah, across different markets. And that's on the scope. Planning, just one second, Eileen, sorry, on the planning. So in the planning wise, it's planned to be running. Yeah, it should be done and completed before 16th of January. So you would start it as soon as for user testing phase starts, and then the objective is to complete by 16th of January 2024. Okay, now go to the last critical step here on the migration rehearsal. So as I said, yeah, this is another key testing activity that needs to be done in parallel to the functional testing phases. So anytime we do a migration rehearsal or pre-migration, then that's when we would actually pause the functional testing, and then we switch to the pre-migration and the migration rehearsal activities. And then once this is completed, we go back to the functional testing. So it's all going to be done in the same environment. Yeah, that's just to give you a background on how the activities are planned. Yeah. So if we see then the scope as such, the ECMS migration rehearsal aims at testing all the steps for pre-migration, preparation week, and then the migration weekend. I think I don't want to go into detail on what would be done with the pre-migration preparation and the migration weekend, because Anaiza explained it clearly, like how what should be done for the production, and the aim is to do the similar activities also in the user testing phase. Yeah, so so we will follow the similar steps on the pre-migration preparation, the migration weekend, so in which the reference data and the transaction data where it should be migrated. As I said here, during these tests, the functional testing, this window, yeah, that function testing is not possible. And here the actors who are involved would be the NCVs, CSTs, TPAs, and the counterparties. Okay, and then with respect to the planning, so here we see pre-migration preparation, the migration weekend test. There are three planned. Yeah. Four. So also considering the one in June. So one on the 26th of June, and then the next one would be happening on from 12th to 20th of September, and the next planned one happens on the 17th till 22nd, 26th of November, and then the last planned one is from 17th till 21st of January 2024. These four windows are planned. Yeah, so preparation, weekend, migration, these four windows are planned. In addition to this, we have two optional window, option to activate another two window, but then of course we have to see how the previous rehearsals went. So if you see the optional one, we have positioned it here in the month of September, October. So 21st September until 16th of October, and then the another option one close to the end of the testing. Yeah, so that's planned currently from 12th till 18th of February 2024. So those two are the optional window, and then in addition to the four planned rehearsals. Yes, that's all I have on the migration rehearsals, and then the different testing activities. And then final slide, here we come on the user testing with respect to the documents. As I said, so we have this info pack strategy, which gives you the picture of the timeline and the activities that you have to do, objective of each phase, and activities you have to do. These information you can get it from the info pack and the strategy. Yeah, and then the connectivity guide will give you the technical information on the and the objective of the connectivity phases, and then yeah, use it. So these all these documents are now published. Yeah, and then of course you have the fundamental test cases, which we also touched upon. So this is also published for you. So that's it. And then another key document which is yet to come is the testing conditions document, which we mentioned. So the idea here is it's going to be a bi-weekly publications during this whole community testing phase. Yeah, and then the first one would be coming by the end of June. Sorry, that's ideally from next week. So yes, that's all I have to say here on. I think that's the last slide from the user testing perspective. Yes, yeah.
Super. Thank you, Bamini. Very good here. I'll just let you breathe for 30 seconds. So we have a few questions coming in. So you're not quite off the hook yet. I want to maybe just say a few things before we dive into the questions. So one, there's been a few questions on the timeline. there's already a presentation in the professional use on the user testing and migration timeline that shows a lot of detail on this. Of course, this information we can share with you again, but that's already published on the website, as Bamini said. It's there on the professional use. There's also a number of questions coming in here that are very technical and specific. So we would advise you then to go directly to your NCB on those questions. As Bamini said, that will be your direct support line. So that's just a few to start off with. Then, Bamini, we have a few questions. And I remember this question also when we were doing focus sessions on T2. So a lot of people are asking, what are they testing in the different phases? So you specified what would be happening in phase 1A. So you were talking about A, B, C, D, and so forth. And then people are asking, what do we need to test in the specific letters, so to speak? But maybe I know you said that, but maybe you can reiterate that one more time.
Sure, no problem. So, yes, with respect to the testing, yeah, so the whole user testing, functional testing as such, starts as part of the community testing phase 2A, as I mentioned. So what would be tested is, as we are going to follow the staggered approach as a first step, then we would start with the testing of mobilization and the demobilization of the marketable assets. So that would be the first functionality A. For what from if you see the slide, maybe we can go to the slide if you want to also have yeah. So if we say testing of A means the functionality A, it's just a representation. So here the target is to have to start the functional testing of mobilization and the demobilization of the marketable assets. That's the first step, yeah. And then going forward, we would be communicating, as I said here, also in the ECMS testing conditions document by weekly basis. Yeah, so fortnightly basis. Yeah. So every other week, then we would be publishing this, and there we would be giving you clear information on which functionality would be coming next. It won't be like would be from tomorrow you can start. It won't- we try to give you information put in advance so that you can prepare yourself to start off the next functional testing block. Yeah, that's the idea of the staggered approach. So first we confirm that the testing of mobilization can start, and then the next one, the B, C, D, and E, we would be communicating in the fortnightly published ECMS testing conditions document. Yeah, so you would be, and it's the functionality, and also if we are going to open up, we're going to say that okay, this functionality can be tested from this date, and we will also mention, try to add the restrictions or the limitations that would be there with this functionality. It's not necessarily that it will be there, but if there are anything, then we would also add this information. So that's the so as of now, I can give the date on the 10th of July. Testing of functionality A would be can start, and then any further information would be coming in the ECMS testing conditions document with the date and also the functionality. Yeah, I hope I was clear.
Super. Again, then there's a number of, again, very specific questions where we would then again refer to the NCB service desk. I think you agree with me here, Bamini. There's a number of very specific questions where you would need to direct it to them. They would be the ones best suited to answer these. There's also a question, but here you've also talked about that. But then, what are the major differences between the community testing phase, operational testing phase, business day testing phase? But this again is highlighted in the user terms of reference and pre-production document, correct? Or maybe you want to say a few words on that, Bamini?
No, yeah, you're totally right. So the objective is basically to ensure that the functionality is tested well, well sufficiently, and that the good quality testing is done. So that's the objective. Yeah, we have different phases. So as I said, I mean, you can get the full details, in the sense the scope and the objective of each of these phase. You can also get, as Celine also mentioned, you can get it from the terms of reference, yeah, for pre-production that's published. But if you just quickly, if I want to say about the operational testing phase, then that's a window where you will do, we will test the procedures that's going to be applicable in the operational phase. Yeah, we will test these procedures from the manual of operation. So we will see, okay, it's fine, it's tested, and it's good, and then so we can do this in production. So such kind of operational testing would be happening in parallel. So it's always go, all these things will go in parallel always with the functional testing, except for the migration. Yeah, that's when we would have to really take a pause from the functional testing, move to migration, and then we finish this, and then we go back to the functional testing. But remaining all other, the objective would be that it would be going, testing other phases would be going in parallel to the functional testing, and it would be happening in these phases. So 2A, 2B, 2C. Yeah. So that's what it is. Yeah. That's how it's planned.
Super. Thank you so much, Mamini. So I think the remaining question, we're just searching all the all the different platforms where we're getting questions here. I think we are close to done. There's one asking, but I'm not sure if that one is for the NCBs as well, about creating the A2A accounts within the administration user portal. Would that be available for June UAT testing? So when basically will you be able to create A2A accounts? Is that for you, or would that be more for the NCBs?
So it's actually the once the NCBs have finished the setup, yeah, for the counterparties, then they can give the green light, yeah, and then the counterparties can do the A2A testing, and that would be starting from the 26th of June. So that's the first time, yeah. But then after that point, it's as you said, it's up to the NCBs also to give the green light to the counterparties to start the setup.
Super. And again, we're getting a few questions in again about what the counterparties are required to do in the different phases. So in the pre-migration phase, but this again is what you said, that these would be specified in the document, correct?
Yes, it was also mentioned by Anna Isa, So this is
Yes.
something it's shared to the NCBs, yeah, as part of user testing. What are all the activities you'd be doing, and which window this is shared with the NCBs, and you can get this information from your NCBs. Yes.
Super. Thank you so much, Mamini. I will let you off the hook now. And then if we have more questions, we will be monitoring everything that have been coming in here. And if there's anything that we feel that we didn't answer where we need to come back to you, we will come back to you then either bilateral or after the event. So so nothing gets lost here. And again, a lot of the questions are probably directly addressed them to your NCB's service desk. Okay, so we will move on to the next part of the agenda, which is on readiness. So I want to move over to our next speaker. Odella, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Super.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Over to
morning.
you.
So, yeah, thanks, Eileen. So, in that last presentation, we are going to look at the ECMS community readiness. So, how is the community readiness monitored? Is monitored, measured by a set of milestones which have been defined by the ECMS governance. You can find those milestones in the link there on the set of milestones words, but also you will see a link on the next slide. So you will see all the detailed milestone. Now, the Big Bang migration that is planned for ECMS will be successful, of course, if all actors, national central banks, the closely monitored actors, so-called CMAs, and the regularly monitored actors, so-called RMAs, are ready and follow the ECMS milestones. So the CMAs and the RMAs are invited regularly by their NCBs to provide detailed information and on several aspects. First, on the confidence level to go live in April 2024. Then on a status of the new milestones that are in the ongoing reporting cycle. and also a status on previous milestones in case they could not be reported or met in the last reporting cycle. And finally, on the confidence level to complete the next reporting cycle milestones. Then what is done with this information that is provided to NCBs? But this information goes to ECB, who consolidates it and report it to the ECMS steering level, which is the Market Infrastructure Board, as a priority after the consolidation project go live. Now, if we look at the roadmap on the next slide for the community roadmap milestones from the left side to the right side. So you can see there the overview of the milestones, starting with the NSP procurement completion, then the completion of the impact assessment, the drafting of the internal application documentation that was still in 21. Now, after that, the completion of the software development for the adaptation to ECMS by June 2022, the testing of internal application by March 2023, and then all the milestones, the upcoming milestones. So we have the connectivity test on pre-production that had to be completed by end of May. This is a point of attention, as it appears that there are still some actors who have not completed this. And then we have the also connectivity test in production in November 2023 that should be completed. And then the user testing completion in February 24, as well as the contractual and legal adaptation and the migration activities. And finally, the adaptation of the operational procedures before going live on the 8th of April 2024. If you go to the next slide, you will have an overview of the various readiness reporting cycles this year and beginning of next year. There was the 9th readiness reporting cycle that took place and was completed in Q1, which had a cutoff date on 16th of Jan. And we'll have 2 more cycles this year, one in that at the cutoff end of May, and for which the information had to be received end of last week, and then one in Q4 and one in Q1 next year. And you can see there, I will not go through all this, but which milestones are concerned by each reporting cycle. And you can, of course, find all those details in the links that are provided in the pack. We'll now make a focus on the output of the 9th readiness cycle of January. So what you see is on the left side of the graph is the reporting on the CMAs. And there you see the right one is the one of January, and it's compared to the previous one of July 2022. You see there an increase in the confidence level, which is now 75%. And on the right side, you see the RMAs, same thing with the January one compared to July 2022, where there it's more or less a similar level of green confidence level with a 74%, but a bit of lower response rate, which was in January of 80%. There is a correction that was made, 80%. So that's for the overall confidence level. And if we zoom on the next slide on the milestones for the CMAs, still with this reporting of January. For the internal application documentation completion, which was only applicable for CSD TPA in that cycle, there was only one of the 18 CSD that had completed it. On the network, the start of the network connectivity and the completion of the network connectivity in the EAC environment, which is the environment used prior to the start of the community testing in pre-prod. There we had 15 out of the 18 CSD TPA that had completed it. And for the internal staff training, the start of the internal staff training, There we had 32 out of the 57 CMAs that had completed this in January. We will have, of course, a new view in this cycle that is being compiled for the moment. The next slide, you have reasons for not meeting the milestones, that those reasons that as they were expressed by the CMAs. The key reasons were insufficient resources and budget, dependencies with some other internal and external projects, the impact on the current internal procedures that needed further assessment, the dependency with the score standards, and the some missing information or documents on the CMA side. What were the actions that were taken to address this? On one side, operations-related training on the NCB side. Then NCBs organized training sessions for their communities, and they may have also organized additional national events. There are also regular and also ad hoc workshops that are organized by Eurosystem for the CSDs and the TPAs. And some information and documentation that had been reported as missing was also published in the meantime. On the next slide, we zoom on the ongoing reporting cycle, so the 10th reporting cycle. So you see the list of milestones that on which input was requested with a cutoff 29 of May. And so there we are still missing information. So I invite also actors who have not yet provided input to do so. On those reporting cycle on the readiness are only quarterly, or even sometimes less frequent. So of course, in the meantime, there are other reporting that we can use to look at the readiness of actors. We have regular NCB testing reports that are produced, and especially we have some on the start of testing phases and also on the connectivity testing progress. And those reports measure on one side the NCB, CSD, tri-party agent and counterparties readiness for the completion of the network connectivity test in pre-prod, and also on the user testing activities in pre-prod, the start of those activities. On the next slide, we will have a look at the output or the input received when compiling those reports. So for the completion of the network connectivity test in pre-prod, this was a reporting with a cutoff 12th of May. We can see that the connectivity for the NCB, CSD, tri-party agent was nearly fully completed. For the RMAs and the other RMAs and CMAs, there you see completion of 33% and 58% for the closely monitored actors. So as already mentioned, this is a particular point of attention for the RMA and CMA. For the start of the user testing activities in pre-prod, you see there the reporting at the time. So that was a cutoff on the 5th of May. There we had for the CSD 9 that reported green, 9 yellow, and 2 red. The red being mainly due to other big projects ongoing in parallel of ECMS. And for the counterparties, where the start of the user testing activities in pre-prod are the 26th of June, there you can see that we had 39% of green for the closely monitored actors and 16% for the regularly monitored actors. Nevertheless, you see that we have quite a high percentage of input missing in that report. We cannot really judge on all those 78% of RMA and 44% of CMAs for which we had no input. So in conclusions, the result of the 9th readiness cycle in January showed improvement of the overall confidence level on readiness compared to the previous cycle, mainly due to the positive impact of the new ECMS planning. All the actors have been asked to provide their latest status for the ongoing reporting cycle, which had a cutoff 29 of May. And we also would like to remind all actors that are relying on third parties for the adaptation to ensure the readiness of these third parties. So now I would like to thank you for your attention, and I will see with Eileen if there are some questions, especially on readiness.
Yes, thank you so much for this. We are scanning here the different, I think you were totally clear. So no additional question on readiness. So I guess that means that everyone got everything right. Again, as I said, there's a few questions that have come in that are very specific, so we would advise you to go then directly to your NCBs. You're always welcome to ask us questions in general. You can either do it, you see the email address here, or directly to the project teams. And again, we are publishing all the information on the website, so both the presentations themselves and the full recordings, you will be able to, revisit everything here. So there should be lots of opportunities. And we also had a few people suggesting topics, so thanks for that. But we will be, questioning at the end on a little feedback survey, so you will have the opportunity to give your feedback and suggest topics that you would like us to drill into. And also, what was mentioned here a number of times. So we are doing, of course, sessions, as Dimitri said here, at the ECB level, but then there's also all the sessions that the NCBs are doing. So make sure that you follow that and use that channel a lot. So unless we have more questions coming in, then I think I would also let you go, Adile, and then move back to Dimitri. And just let you maybe conclude a little before what is your wrap of the day before we close up with the questions. So over to you, Dimitri.
Yes, indeed. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Well, at the beginning, we said we wanted to have an interactive session, and I must say I'm not disappointed. We saw a lot of activity in the chat, and I hope that the questions that were raised have been addressed. I'm sure there is many more, but we have all the communication channels in place to address them at a later point in time. In terms of attendance, Eileen, you did not mention it, but we had a good steady 700 people connected during the session, which is good, and it also confirms the value of such event. Coming back a bit to the content. So today we started with the information on the organization of the migration. Anaïsa walked us through the 7 steps of the migration process. The main message here is that, well, beyond the registration, the setup of the parties in the system, which is planned during summer, the connectivity to production will span between September and November this year, so it's not so far away. And the pre-migration activity will start early January. I don't have the exact date, but it will be early Jan next year. And then, well, of course, Isa highlighted the critical steps that are planned the weeks before the migration, the so-called preparation weeks, and also what we will do during the migration weekend. She also reminded us of the main documents. Again, the slides that we have shown here today will be shared on the website, so that will be done. There you have all the links, and of course all the documents are also made public. And again, thanks a lot, Anaïsa, for stepping in here and for the detailed information that you shared. Then, as a second agenda topic, we move to the organization of the user testing. There, Bamini took over and walked us through the 7 critical steps of user testing. It looks like there is something with 7 steps, because we have that many times. And not surprisingly, there are some similarities between what we heard from ANAESA in terms of numbers of steps, but also in terms of content. So the registration, the connectivity, and the reference data setup are a bit of commonalities. These steps are either completed or ongoing. And I also took from Bamini that as a safety net, we have positioned an optional pre-migration rehearsal late September or early October. Of course, we'll activate it only if this is needed. But then the focus from Bamini's perspective was the functional testing. And there you have heard that we have organized the testing in several steps. You heard about stages 2A, 2B, and 2C, with the first one starting on the 10th of July. I'm here on the functional tests. And Bamini explained the staggered approach. There will be packages, and I will not repeat everything that was said here, but the main takeaway here is that a key element for an orderly testing is the ECMS testing conditions document, which the team will keep updated and publish every second week. Then we cover the fundamental test cases. So the fundamental test cases are the test cases that you need. Well, of course, depending on your setup and your role in ECMS, these are the test cases that you must conduct and report on to your central bank. This is, of course, a key component in our ability to monitor and assess the overall readiness. Of course, these are the fundamental test cases. It's only a subset of what you should be doing. You are, of course, allowed to do much more depending on your specific needs. And here again, so we have key documents, and those key documents are available on our website. And then finally, we move to the ECMS readiness framework. Here we have Odile covering the topic. She covered the various milestones on the roadmap. And the message here that I took as well from what I heard is that some are lagging slightly behind with their connectivity test for pre-production. For those that are lagging behind, please make sure that your institutions are putting enough focus on this to solve the problem as soon as possible. We heard about the confidence level, which is a prospective view on the readiness for the go live. Odile shed some light on the main root causes for those that report a lower confidence level. And in that respect, where possible, we have already taken the necessary measures. This is, for instance, beefing up the trainings, organizing additional workshops. And well, that was a real rich focus session. What I want to take as a conclusion here is that we are well on track with our delivery. And when I say we, it's not only the Eurosystem, it's also you. Many report a green status. And of course, those that report a yellow status, they are invited to increase their focus and to solve that as soon as possible. As said earlier, there will be challenges ahead of us, but I think that we are equipped all together to address them and make sure that we meet the deadline of the 8th of April next year. I believe I'm more or less I'm done with this. To close, there would be no such event without the backstage team. And again, thank you, Eline and the team, for the outstanding organization. Thank you also to everyone for the participation today. I hope you found this event useful, and I hope that it helps you preparing better for the launch of ECMS in 10 months from now. So on my side, I'm done, Eline. I will wish everyone a good day, but I don't know if there is a Menti question or whatever at the end of this focus session. So back to you, Eline. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you, Dimitri, very much for closing and wrapping up here. And as you said, we just would like to invite everyone to quickly go through and fill in the Mentimeter. This is really like your opportunity to give us feedback so we would know what you would like to hear about next time and what you liked about the session. So it takes less than a minute. So just grab your phone, scan the QR code on the screen now, or use a browser and open the link to the Menti. There's a code which is 69998105, or really just scan the QR code on the screen now. It's really just super simple questions about what you like, what you would like to have more of in the future. And with that, I just want to thank everybody. Thanks to all the presenters, Dimitri, everyone for joining us today. And asking a lot of questions. It's always best when we have these sessions and everyone is interactive. So thanks for that. And yes, and have a nice day, as Dimitri say. And until next time, thank you and goodbye.